Hello everyone. This is the story of, what if Naruto faces his hidden desires with Hinata. Sakura's point of view. Sakura was walking down the sidewalk when she heard someone call her name. She turned around to find the idiot, Naruto, running after her calling her name. When he was about a few inches away from her, he yelled, "Hey Sakura, Granny Tsunade wa NTS is to go to her office for a mission." He was jumping up and down, excited that he finally was going on a mission with Sakura. Sakura saw that Naruto had a mischievous grin on his face, so she bopped him on the head. "Naruto, you idiot, you know she won't let us go alone." After she said that, she walked away, leaving Naruto to sulk. When she walked into Tsunade's office, she saw Ino, Shikamaru, Hinata, and oh my gosh, Sasuke. They were all waiting for who do you think? Naruto. It was around 5 minutes later when Naruto finally burst through the door. When Hinata saw Naruto, her face got all red and both of her pointing fingers were touching. Tsunade finally yelled over Naruto's yelling. "Great, now since everyone's here we can get on with the mission." Naruto finally quieted down Akshua. LLY, letting Tsunade speak for a change. "It's amazing, isn't it? You're all here because I have a mission for you all. I need you all to go fetch me a potion and a scroll from the village hidden in the mist. Oh, and Team 7, it's not the same island that you three went to. The island is called Silver Mist. The mission will start tomorrow at 7:30 sharp. Don't be late or the team will leave without you. This especially goes for you, Naruto." They all nodded their heads and left the room to get ready for the mission tomorrow. Naruto's point of view. As Naruto was walking to Ichiraku's ramen shop, he noticed someone was hiding behind a tree. He stopped and looked that way, trying to figure out who the person was. He shrugged it off, figuring it was useless, and kept on walking, getting hungrier and hungrier by the second. When he finally got there, he ordered his usual bowl of ramen, eating 17 bowls, slurping them down. As he was finishing his 17th bowl, he felt someone staring at him. When he turned to look, he found no one in sight, just a bunch of trees. He sighed and asked for another bowl of ramen. This time, as he was finishing his bowl of ramen, Ichiraku said, "You know there's a girl staring at you." Naruto nodded his head, then asked, "What does she look like? Is she pretty?" Well, she has short purplish black hair and a big tan jacket." "Well, for the fair question, I can't really tell, but I guess she is." Naruto nodded and paid the bill, then got up to leave, but before he left he asked, "Is she still staring at me?" Ichiraku nodded, then took the money and dishes into the kitchen to be washed and dried. Naruto smirked. He had a great idea, but first he needed to find a bathroom if this plan was going to work. He finally found one a few blocks away from his house. Now his plan was going to go into motion. Just before he went in, he made sure that she was still watching him from behind a tree or somewhere else. He walked into one of the stalls. Hen used his shadow clone jutsu to duplicate himself once. Once that was done, he sent his clone out to distract her so he could sneak up behind her. This would actually be one of his smarter ideas he had ever had, which is amazing for him. His clone was at his house by the time Naruto caught up with them. His clone walked into the house and closed the door when Naruto actually heard her sigh. Shish. He had finally come out of hiding, so Naruto decided to surprise her. When she started to walk home, Naruto jumped put of a tree right in front of her. What he didn't know was that she was under him when he jumped. When she saw him, she moved but wasn't fast enough. He still fell on top of her. When she looked at him, she found that his whole body was on hers. This made her blush. Of course, Naruto being an idiot didn't even notice who he was on. He was sort of knocked out, but when he finally came to, he noticed something under him. He looked down to find one paralyzed Hyuga, too shocked to even speak. He finally got off of her, blushing. This shocked Ms. Hyuga. She had never seen Naruto blush before in her whole life. It made her blush even more. She was still lying there when she heard him say, "Sorry Hinata, I didn't know it was you." It's okay, Naruto," stuttered Hinata. "Well, then I better go. See you tomorrow, Hinata." Hinata just stared after him, blushing even though he was already out of sight. Naruto walked into his house, got ready for tomorrow, and then went to bed. Everything that happened today wiped him out. He laid in bed thinking about what had just happened a few minutes ago. Naruto couldn't believe that he had blushed in front of Hinata. This confused him. "What's wrong with me?" he asked, speaking his thoughts out loud, still confused. He finally fell asleep after a while, thinking about how Hinata blushes every time she sees him. Naruto smiled at that thought, then fell asleep in a deep slumber. Hinata's point of view. Hinata stared up at her ceiling instead of going to sleep. She was in her bed thinking of Naruto, of course, but the one difference between all the other times was that she was thinking of his blush. She had never seen Naruto blush before. The one thing that she didn't understand was why he blushed. It wasn't like he was blushing because of me, was it? Hinata wondered. She dozed into a deep slumber thinking about that one question that may never be answered, or would it? When she woke up, she looked at her clock to find it was 6 o'clock in the morning. Hinata got up and decided to pack her bags for the mission today. Shish. She grabbed all of the clothes she would need and put them in her bag. As she was walking out, she noticed her blue and purple kimono and decided to take it just in case. Again she was going to walk out. But this time she looked down at her clothes. She was still in her pajamas, so she went over to her closet and got dressed. When she was finally done, she went to the kitchen for breakfast. The smell from the food was overpowering when she walked into the kitchen. Hinata sat down in one of the chairs and waited for the food to be ready. What Hinata didn't notice was who was actually cooking the food. When the food was ready, someone put it in front of her. She looked up to find Neji. "Neji, did you make this?" asked Hinata, pointing to the food and without stuttering. Neji just nodded his head. Speechless, he had never heard Hinata say something without stuttering before. Hinata was surprised about two things. One, Neji could actually cook, and two, that Neji was surprised about something. She knew Neji well, and all her life she knew nothing surprises him except Naruto. When she thought about Naruto, she would blush, which she did anyways when she get embarrassed. She ate in silence, blushing at the same time, different thoughts running through her mind. When she finished her breakfast, she looked at the clock to find it was 7 o'clock. She ran out the door and walked down the sidewalk to the spot where everyone was supposed to meet when a thought hit her. "I better go to Naruto's house to wake him up. I don't want him to miss the mission," Hinata told herself. Hinata ran down the block to Naruto's house, out of breath when she finally got there. Hinata knocked on the door nervously, trying to slow down her heart, which was pounding against her ribs. When she heard someone crashing into things and a bunch of ouches, she got even more nervous. The door finally creaked open to reveal a very sleepy Naruto. Hinata breathed in deeply. They asked, "Naruto, are you ready for the mission today?" This gave Naruto a jolt because of two things. One, he had totally forgotten about the mission today, and two, because Hinata didn't even stutter a single time, unlike yesterday. "Oh shit, what time is it?" asked Naruto. It's around 7:10 and we have to get there before 7:30. Naruto's point of view. Naruto ran around the house gathering clothes, then went to his room to change into his normal clothes. When he was all done, he grabbed his bag and ran out the door, grabbing Hinata's hand on the way. This shocked her, but she didn't complain since she was too shocked to say anything. They finally made it by a minute. It was 7:29 when they got there. They were out of breath when they finally stopped, and Hinata wouldn't stop blushing. Every few times her blush would change a shade. Naruto didn't even notice that he was still holding Hinata's hand, which made her blush even more. Everybody noticed this, but no one wanted to say anything, afraid something might happen. The one to break the ice was Ino. She asked, "Naruto, why are you holding Hinata's hand? Is something going on between you two?" Naruto looked down to find Ino was right. He was still holding Hinata's hand. He dropped her hand, then blushed. "Naruto, you still haven't answered my question. Is something going on between you two?" Hinata blushed even more, and so did Naruto, which was a surprise to everyone, I would say, don't you think? No, nothing is going on between us," Naruto stuttered, shocking everyone, even himself, for a change. He looked down at his feet, blushing for a time, then he yelled, "Hey, come on, let's get going, we have a mission to do." Everyone shook their heads and rolled their eyes at Naruto's mood swing. Then they were off to Silver Mist Island. They jumped from tree to tree, surveying the area, making sure no one would sneak up on them and attack. Naruto was ahead of everyone else, trying to distract himself from thinking this morning since 5 hours had gone by. When they finally got to the village hidden in the mist, they had to ask someone to take them to Silver Mist Island. It took then a while to actually find someone. When they did, it was an old man seeking a woman. This creeped the girls out, but the boys just busted out laughing. Then the boys made a deal with him even though the girls didn't want to. Guys agreed that if the guy gave them a ride to the island, then the guys would work, and the girls would serve drinks plus food. Wearing a kimono, the guy agreed, smiling, which creeped the girls out even more. They all shivered at the same time. This made the boys laugh harder, which they got hit on the head for by Ino and Sakura. Hinata was too shy. They were finally off again, only this time Y weren't on foot this time. The Y were in a boat traveling across the ocean. While sitting in the front of the boat, Naruto would look over his shoulder at Hinata, which would make her blush. He smiled, making her blush deepen more, making everyone look from Naruto to Hinata, then back and forth. Naruto, you idiot, stop doing that. Do you want to give Hinata a heart attack? Exclaimed Sakura. Naruto thought about it for a second, then crawled over to Hinata, putting his hand where her heart was supposed to be. This made Hinata's heart go crazy. Her heartbeat was beating faster and sometimes skipping a beat. Soon after a few seconds of Naruto's hand on her chest, she fainted, almost falling overboard. Naruto grabbed her just in time, putting her on his lap, waiting till Hinata would finally wake up. When she finally did wake up, she found herself staring up at Naruto. She started to blush at the sight of his stare. Naruto set her back down in her seat, but instead of moving back to his seat, he stayed there staring out to sea. Ino's point of view. Ino just sat there staring out to sea, sometimes stealing glances at Naruto and Hinata, also at Shikamaru. Blushing, she was glad no one was paying attention to her. They were all too busy staring at Naruto and Hinata, acting all weird to even pay attention to her staring at Shikamaru. She sighed deeply, then looked back at the sea. Wind blew her now long hair across her face. Ino looked around the boat to find the old man staring at her. It made her sick. Sick pervert, Ino thought, shivering as she did so. She heard a voice ask, "Are you cold?" She looked up to find Shikamaru holding out his jacket. She nodded her head, taking the jacket. Ino wrapped the jacket around her arms, feeling the warmth coming off of it by the second. The warmth was making her body relax, since she didn't know what to expect from any mission. She would tense up. Ino looked back at Shikamaru to find that he was staring at her intensely, making Ino blush. She turned away, trying not to look at his face, which was easier said than done. Once in a while she would sneak a peek at him and find him staring at her, making her blush deepen. Ino's blush deepened even more when Shikamaru smiled at her, making her heart skip a beat. She felt like fainting, like Hinata does every time Naruto looks at her. Sasuke's point of view. Losers, Sasuke thought to himself, looking at Naruto, Hinata, Shikamaru, and Ino all acting weird. Sasuke just rolled his eyes, then looked out to sea, noting that they were almost to the island. It was almost nightfall when they finally reached the beach of the island. The boat stopped, letting everyone off, but not before the old man could feel all the girls' legs. Of course, he got slapped in the face by Ino and Sakura. Hinata had fainted, even though the guy did get punched in the face by Naruto. Sasuke smirked at how the old man looked all beat up and his face all red from being slapped. Sasuke looked around at his surrounding, noting that nobody probably lived here in a while. He walked ahead a little ways, trying to figure out where to go, but he still couldn't figure it out. Sasuke looked in all directs and he finally came across something just up ahead. "Hey Hinata, can you come here a second? I just need to see something." Sasuke waited for her, but no one came. He went back to the group to find Hinata had fainted and now was in Naruto's arms. When she finally woke up, Sasuke called over to her again, asking her the same thing. He asked her to use her Byakuganto to see what's up ahead to make sure it was safe to go ahead. She looked to find a big shack just sitting there, decaying from bugs and water, making the wood soft plus soggy. She told Sasuke of her findings. He nodded, then gathered everyone up to tell them what they found. Once that was over, they set off toward Tei's shack, looking for a potion and scroll to complete their mission. They stopped just now, remembering what time it was. So they had to camp out for the night till dawn. The boys had one tent and the girls had t'other to make. Sure, nothing happened. Hint, hint. The girls fell asleep fast. They were out like a light just being turned off for the night. The boys couldn't fall asleep, so Naruto had a brilliant idea. I wonder what it was. Normal point of view. The first one up was Shikamaru, so he had to choose someone to pick, truth or dare. I choose Sasuke. Truth or dare? I choose dare. Haha. I dare you to dress up like a girl tomorrow and make sure you put on makeup and make yourself look nothing like yourself. Sasuke glared at Shikamaru, then said, "Fine, I'll do it, but don't tell the girls are my fans." Naruto and Shikamaru both agreed that they wouldn't tell anyone about a single thing. Okay Naruto, it's your turn. Truth or dare? I choose dare. Sasuke smirked, then said, I dare you to ask Hinata out on a date and make sure you dress up. Naruto blushed at this, then stuttered. Fine, I will. Naruto looked at Shikamaru, giving him a huge grin. Shikamaru knew this was going to be bad. He sighed. Okay Shikamaru, truth or dare? He thought about it for a second, already knowing that both of them would be bad. He sighed again, then said, this is such a drag, I choose truth. So Shikamaru, do you like Ino? Because I saw the way you looked at her on the boat. Shikamaru blushed, really blushed, then nodded his head in saying that he does like her that way. They started a new game this time. You have to tell the truth. Shikamaru and Naruto ganged up on Sasuke. That meant that they all had to confess a secret no one really knows about, and it had to be about a girl. It was Sasuke's turn to tell the truth, and Shikamaru got to ask the question. Okay Sasuke, do you like Sakura? Sasuke turned away from them, but what they didn't know was that in fact Sasuke was blushing. He just nodded his head, making Naruto smirk when he finally turned around to show that he was blushing. Naruto started to laugh, shaking the tent, almost making it collapse. Then Sasuke exclaimed, shut up, you idiot, do you want to wake up the girls and explain why we're still awake? Naruto thought about this, then shook his head, blushing, since he didn't want any of the girls to know any of their secrets. They all agreed that they wouldn't tell any of the IR secrets to anyone. They made this deal by shaking each other's hands. Then they all laid down to go to sleep, thinking about their loves. They all smiled, even Sasuke. What a surprise. Everyone were dreaming of something special to them. I wonder what could it be. I think everyone has a good imagination. I bet everyone knows who's special to the Naruto characters. I'm just going to let your imagination run wild. You can think of what they were dreaming about besides someone special. They woke up early, yawning, stretching. Then they all walked out of their tents except for Ino. Shikamaru walked into the girls' tent and walked over to Ino, shaking her lightly on the shoulder. Ino opened her eyes, blinking a few times, making sure that she wasn't dreaming, since Shikamaru was sitting right next to her. She sat up, staring into his black eyes, then smiled. She leaned in closer to him and he did the same. Just as they were about to beep, guess who interrupts them? Naruto. Ino and Shikamaru both separated, blushing, making Naruto seem like more of an idiot than he already was. Ino ran out of the tent, crashing into Hinata on the way, making both of them crash to the ground. With a thud, Ino picked herself up and brushed the dirt off her clothes, then ran over to Hinata to help her up. She outstretched her hand for Hinata, which she took, lifting herself up off the ground. Ino smiled at her, then left to find Sakura to tell her something that must have been important. Sakura's point of view. Sakura was trying to find Sasuke when she heard someone come up to her. She turns to find Ino behind her, smiling. What do you want, Ino pig? I'm a little busy right now. If that's how you're going to treat me, then I guess I won't tell you what almost happened. This caught Sakura's attention. She always loved finding out things that she didn't know, mostly gossip. Sakura listened closely to what Ino was saying about what happened when she woke up. Sakura was intrigued. She never thought that Shikamaru would actually show that emotion. Well, that's mostly about Shino. She shivered at the thought of the creepy bug boy and his sunglasses, plus his coat that covered most of his face. She noticed Ino staring at her, probably wondering what she was doing. Oh, it's nothing, don't worry, I'm fine now, let's go find everyone. Sakura grabbed Ino's arm, then they started running toward Tay group just up ahead, waiting for everyone. Just as Sakura was coming to a stop, she collided with someone, and when she looked up she found Sasuke. He was holding her up since if he wasn't, she would fall face forward into the ground. Oh my gosh, Sasuke is touching me, she blushed looking down at her feet when Sasuke finally noticed. He let go immediately. Thinking, oh shit, I was holding Sakura, just calm down, it's not like anything was going to happen. Sakura was still looking at her feet while Sasuke turned his head. He didn't want anyone to know that he was blushing. Naruto's point of view. Naruto was just walking out of the tent from talking to Shikamaru when he heard a quiet voice say his name. He turned around to find an indigo-haired girl playing with her fingers looking down at her feet. Yeah, Hinata, is there something wrong? No, Naruto-kun, it's just that the gang is heading out though the shack. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Let's go. Naruto was jumping up for joy, acting his blonde hair bob. Then he grabbed Hinata's hand and they ran to the group. Once all together, they set off for the shack to complete their mission once and for all. Naruto was actually in the back of the group this time. He seemed to be distracted by something. When they reached the shack everyone stopped but Naruto, who ran right into Hinata. This made Hinata yelp, and she started to blush. A deep shade of red by one little accident. Sorry Hinata, I wasn't paying any attention to where I was going. It's okay Naruto-kun, I understand, you don't have to apologize. Naruto nodded and smiled at Hinata, making her blush reappear since it went away after the incident. They continued their mission to the shack, but for some reason Naruto still wasn't paying attention as usual. When Hey entered the shack, they didn't let their defenses down. Except for Naruto. They had just entered when Sasuke noticed something, which made everyone stop, even Naruto. Naruto looked around the room to find nothing out of the ordinary. Sasuke, why'd we stop? Dope. There are BP traps all over Tay place. If you make one wrong move you'll set it off. They started walking again, just a little more cautious than before. Of course Naruto, being an idiot, didn't pay attention to what Sasuke said. Naruto was walking when he stepped on something he shouldn't have. Two kunais came toward him. He wasn't paying attention until something hit him in the ribs, making him fall hard on the ground. Naruto looked up to find Hinata on top of him, a little dizzy from the impact. Naruto laid her on his lap. Since he was already on the ground, he suddenly felt something wet. He looked down at his leg where Hinata's shoulder laid. That's when he saw it, a pool of blood trickling down his leg, sending shivers down his spine. Naruto put her in a sitting position to examine her shoulder. She moaned a little, making Naruto look at her face. Hinata moaned again, wincing at the searing pain on her shoulder. Naruto didn't know what to do, so he did the only thing he could think of. Hey guys, Hinata is hurt. What? Exclaimed Sakura. Stay put Naruto. We'll get the scroll and potion, you just take care of Hinata, said Sasuke. Naruto nodded his head, then tried to stop the bleeding with his hands. When that didn't work, he tried something else. He took off his shirt, then wrapped it around her shoulder, putting pressure on the wound. The blood soaked the shirt all the way through, making the black shirt turn an even darker color. This worried Naruto. He didn't know what to do. Hinata's moans were the only thing that told him that she was conscious. Her moans seemed to have stopped. He didn't know if that was a good thing or not. Hinata, wake up. Please don't die on me. Naruto whined. Why? Shaking her. It didn't look too good. She was losing blood fast. He stopped shaking her when he suddenly heard her moan. He set her back down gently, then brushed a few strands of hair out of her face. That's when Hinata's eyes fluttered open, and when she saw him staring at her she blushed. Naruto smiled, making her blush deepen. He grabbed her, embracing her in a tight hug. This made her blue deepen into a deep red violet. Then she winced. The pain had come back, making the hug almost unbearable. Naruto noticed this, so he let go, scratching the back of his head while blushing from his embarrassment. Are you okay? Did I hurt you? I'm sorry if I did. No, I'm fine Naruto-kun, you didn't hurt me. Naruto nodded. The pushed Hinata back down on the ground, so now her head was on his lap. Then he smiled at her. Hinata didn't resist him when he pushed her down. Instead, she blushed from his touch and vibrant heat. Naruto noticed the blush and decided to do an experiment. He got a mischievous glint in his dark blue eyes. He lifted up his right hand and lightly brushed it up against her left cheek, making Her blush deepened. He did it again, but this time he brushed his fingertips against her luscious lips very lightly. While doing so, a blush crept up on his face. Hinata saw this, so she tried to conceal her little giggles, but a few escaped, making Naruto look at her with eyebrows raised. "What's so funny?" asked Naruto, confused like always. "Nothing, Naruto-kun," Hinata said between laughs. Naruto shrugged it off, then looked up at the ceiling, smiling. The gang's point of view. Everyone walked ahead, not even noticing that Naruto and Hinata had suddenly gone missing, nowhere in sight. When they stopped just a few feet away from the scroll, they heard someone yell, "Hey guys, Hinata is hurt." They knew that voice, there was no mistaking that was Naruto's voice. "What?" exclaimed Sakura. She couldn't believe that Hinata had all of a sudden got hurt. "Stay put, Naruto. We'll get scroll and potion, you just take care of Hinata," Sasuke said, sighing. "I can't believe Hinata got hurt," whispered Sakura to Ino. "I bet it's Naruto's fault, he probably set off a trap, that idiot," whispered Ino to Sakura. Sakura nodded, then Sasuke led them forward to get the scroll, which was in plain sight. This made Shikamaru suspicious. Sasuke also noticed this, so he threw a rock toward Tei's spot to see what would happen, and what happened next didn't surprise Shikamaru. This shocked Sakura and Ino, since they weren't really paying attention to what Tei guys were doing. When the rock hit, he spot 10 kunais, 2 shurikens, and a flash bomb hit the rock with great accuracy. Sasuke threw another rock, seeing if all of the weapons were gone, but in fact more weapons flew out of a corner in the walls. Sasuke pinpointed where they were coming from, so he had a brilliant idea of how to avoid them. Everyone gathered around Sasuke to hear his brilliant plan, which involved going under where the weapons came out of. They all nodded, understanding the plan, so they all got ready to get the plan over with, but before they could, something happened. Shikamaru took one step before he tripped over something, then toppled over, taking Sasuke with him. When they stopped rolling, they found that they were on top of each other, making the girls almost faint from the sight. They both got up, but before being attacked by weapons, so instead of running back, they ran forward. Shikamaru just barely dodged one of the kunais, but of course he had to trip, bringing Sasuke with him again. When they got up, they found that the scroll was right in front of them. This was their chance to finally complete their mission. Sasuke stretched out his arm to grab it, but before he did, he heard something behind him. He turned around to see a big chicken the size of him. This scared the shit out of him. "Holy shit, Shikamaru, are you seeing what I'm seeing?" "Well duh, I'm right beside you." "Then why didn't you get the scroll? And I thought you were a genius." Well, you see, the chicken took it." "It did what?" exclaimed Sasuke, looking back at the hug. Chicken now noticing the scroll in its mouth. "That wasn't there before. How did?" "Oh, never mind." Sasuke shook his head in aggravation, then walked up to the chicken and got ready to fight it. Just as he was about to hit it in the beak, the chicken bent back, then shot forward. It peeked the living shit out of Sasuke, then it lifted up its leg, then brought it down. It hit Sasuke straight in he bakc, since he now was lying on the ground. Sasuke looked over at Shikamaru to find that he had fallen asleep. He just rolled his eyes. Sasuke looked over at Tei girls to find them playing cards. It confused him, since they didn't have cards packed in the first place. Sakura saw him look their way, so she waved, then said, "Hey Sasuke, why don't you join us?" Sakura, have you even noticed that I'm being peeked and scratched to death by a chicken? He can join us also if he wants. Just sit down and I'll hand out the cards." Sasuke shrugged his shoulders, figuring there was nothing else to do, so the chicken and Sasuke played a game of poker. Sasuke was winning. It was between the chicken and him. They were playing a game of poker. Sasuke had won once getting the scroll, but then chicken won, so he had to give it back. It went on like this for a few minutes until Sasuke won the scroll back, then ran for his dear life. As he was running, he tripped over Shikamaru just lying there asleep. This pissed Sasuke off, so he picked up Shikamaru and threw him at the chicken, but he just bounced off. Sasuke decided to keep running, since the chicken would probably beat him up if he stopped. On his way, he grabbed Sakura and told Ino to get Shikamaru. She did so. Now they were all running. When they came close to the clearing they heard someone yell. "Holy shit! We got to get up Hinata or we'll be crushed." No one could mistake his voice, it was Naruto, and he had just noticed the group and the chicken. Naruto got up with Hinata in his arms. Bridal style, carrying her out the hack. Well, actually he was running out of the shack. Naruto's point of view. Naruto looked back down at Hinata to find that she had fallen asleep holding onto his bare chest, making him blush. He let out a deep sigh. Then brushed some hair out of her face so he could see her face better. Then he lightly brushed the back of his hand across her face. Then he looked at her wound to see his shirt worse. The shirt was still all bloody, but the shirt wasn't dry, it was still wet, which meant she was still bleeding. The smell of the blood was getting worse because one, it just plain smells, and two, because of the smell of the old shack. The smell was getting to him. It seemed that he was seeing things like a big chicken chasing after the gang and coming straight for them. "Holy shit, we got to get up Hinata or we'll be crushed," exclaimed Naruto when he finally figured out that the chicken was actually real. Naruto shook Hinata a little, but nothing happened. This wasn't good, so he picked up bridal style, then ran outside as fast as he could. When he got outside he was blinded by the bright light of the sun. He had just taken a step when he tripped. Naruto tripped over a rock about the size of his fingers, making him topple over. When he stopped he found himself on top of Hinata. His face turned a bright red at how close he was to Hinata, but what confused him was why he was just lying there. Naruto didn't even try to move, he just laid there staring at her face, which in the light looked beautiful. "Wow, I've never noticed before, but she looks lovely in the light of the sun. Why am I even thinking about her? Oh right, I like her," thought Naruto. He shook his head trying to clear it. Then he got up off of Hinata, who was still asleep. While he still had a slight blush on his face, Naruto's blush was just disappearing when everyone came running out of the shack with the chicken on their heels. "Shit, why did you bring the chicken with you?" exclaimed Naruto while picking up Hinata to carry her and run like hell. Naruto ran to the boat, which was only a few feet away from where he was now, so he picked up the pace. "Come on guys, hurry up, you don't want the boat to leave you here with that thing," yelled Naruto, pointing at the chicken. The gang ran as fast as they could to reach the boat where the perverted old man was waiting, who by the way hadn't seen the chicken yet. Once everyone was in, they all yelled except Hinata. Go, 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 hurry up. Come on old man, hurry up, we have to get out of her fast," exclaimed Naruto, who was pointing at the chicken, which was almost to the boat. When the pervert saw this he grabbed the engine cord and pulled as hard as he could, which wasn't that hard. The engine started up then. The man yelled over the roar, "Hold on tight, this might be a rough ride." Everyone held on to the sides of the boat except for Naruto, who held on to Hinata, making sure she didn't fall overboard. Naruto was breathing hard from all of the running, which wasn't much, but he did run as fast as he could to the boat, so that counts. He looked down at Hinata, who was still sleeping, then smiled, thinking of how beautiful she is when she's sleeping. Sasuke's point of view. Sasuke was looking down at each scroll in his hands, thinking, "I wonder what's so important about this scroll, and where could the potion be?" He shook his head, then looked at his teammates. His bulk eyes looked over all of them, but his gaze strayed to Naruto when he noticed something different. Sasuke pondered on this, then finally asked, "Where's your shirt? Did something happen to it?" Naruto looked up at Sasuke, then looked back down. Sasuke just now noticed that Hinata was in Naruto's lap. He had just remembered that Hinata had gotten hurt, so he looked at her now, noticing the black shirt wrapped around her shoulder. "I wonder how badly hurt she is," thought Sasuke, still staring at the shirt. "Hey Naruto, is she badly hurt? Do you think it's serious?" asked Sasuke, which made everyone look at him. "I don't know Sasuke, all I know is that she's lost a lot of blood, but the wound doesn't look too bad." Sasuke noticed Naruto look down at Hinata, but this time with no smile. Instead his face read that he was in pain. "She's going to be okay Naruto, there is nothing to worry about," said Sakura, trying to reassure him, knowing that he didn't want anything to happen to her. "Thanks Sakura," whispered Naruto, which surprised everyone since they had never heard him whisper. They were talking about Naruto, the #1 hyperactive knuckle-headed ninja, the loudest and energetic person in Konoha. Sakura felt horrible. She just wanted to go over there and try to make him feel better. This of course she couldn't do. She was afraid that if she did, she might start having feelings for him, and she didn't want that to happen since she loved Sasuke. Sakura looked over at Ino to find Ino looking at her in a very grim way. It looked like she was about to cry. All the way back to the village hidden in the mist it was silent. No one said a single word to each other. They all looked out to sea, all probably wondering the same thing. Will Hinata be alright? Sakura looked up at the sky and watched seagulls fly by cawing on there. Then looked over at the sun, noting how beautiful it looked and how bright it was, almost blinding her. The island was now in view, but you could only see bits and pieces through the thick fog. The boat came to a complete stop in front of a big wooden deck a little taller than the boat. Everyone got out of the boat as quickly as they could except for Naruto, who took it slower than the rest. The old man took the lead. Sakura was right behind him. He was taking them to a house about the size of a mansion, which it probably was. "Whoa, you live here?" asked Sakura. "Yeah, I stay here sometimes but not very often." "So what do you need us to do?" asked Shikamaru, who was already bored. "I need you to do all of the chores since most of my maids and workers are sick. Now let's get a move on." They all sighed, knowing that the worst had yet to come, so they would have to deal with it for now. The gang made their way to the mansion to get the worst over with so they wouldn't have to deal with it anymore. When they walked, all of their jaws dropped at how gorgeous the place was, with all different sorts of priceless art. "Girls, I have some kimonos upstairs. It's the door on the right if you want to pick out yours right now." The girls all looked dumbstruck. Then they remembered the deal Tay guys had made with the old pervert. Ino and Skura gave Tay guys death glares, making the guys all gulp. Ino looked around for Hinata, then saw her still in Naruto's arms. Naruto saw her staring, and this made Naruto uncomfortable. He remembered that Hinata was still in his arms. "Hey old man, do you know where I can find a hospital?" asked Naruto. The guy looked down at Hinata, then said, "Oh, I have a nurse here. She can help you, little friend." He motioned Naruto toward a door at far east corridor, then told him to go in if he wanted to help his friend. Naruto opened the door to a bright yellow room with a view of Tay Ocean and showed the sky getting dark. A woman in a bright green kimono was sitting in a chair beside the view. She had long brown hair and she wore glasses. When she saw Naruto with Hinata, she bolted up, running toward them with pure concern on her face and in her green eyes. "What happened here?" she asked in a lovely voice while taking the shirt off of Hinata's shoulder. "She got hit with a kunai, ma'am, in the shoulder." "Oh dear, this doesn't look good. How long has she been out?" Well, about an hour or so." "Is it serious?" asked a worried Naruto. She nodded her head, then went over to her counter and pulled out some cotton balls dampened with peroxide, then walked back over to Hinata. She putted the cotton balls on Hinata's wound, the applied pressure to it. She looked over at Naruto. Naruto saw her staring, then asked, "Can I do anything to help?" "Well, actually you could help me by applying pressure to her wound while I get the bandages." Naruto nodded his head, then walked over to where Hinata is, then got down on his knees to apply pressure to her wound, which he did. But slowly. He didn't want to hurt her by applying too much pressure and accidentally break her shoulder, so he hesitated, trying to think it through. "It's okay. You won't hurt her if she's dear to you," said the nurse, putting her hand on his shoulder. This settled him down a bit. It gave him courage to do what he had to do to help her out, so he let his hand settle on Hinata's wound. He lightly applied pressure. The nurse came back with the bandages, which meant that he could let go now. Naruto let his hands slide down from the wound to the floor with a thud. He watched the nurse wrap up the wound neatly. We should probably put her on the bed over there," said the nurse, pointing right behind Naruto to an empty bed. Naruto nodded, picking up Hinata bridal style to the bed behind him, which was right across from the window that he saw when he first walked in. There was a chair beside the bed, so he sat down, staring at the indigo-haired girl in front of him asleep. "It's just like that fairy tale someone read me about a princess who was put under a spell and the only way to wake her was a beep from Prince Charming," thought Naruto. The idea of beeping Hinata made him blush, which the nurse saw since she was still in the room. He cleared her throat, making Naruto turn around. She then said, "I must be going." She bowed. "I wish her a full recovery and I want you to watch over her when I leave." He nodded, turned back To Hinata when he did so he noticed that she seemed to be in pain so he leaned his head down close to her neck then whispered. Everything is going to be okay, Hinata-chan. This relaxed her, which made Naruto grin one of his foxish grins. Soon after his eyelids started to droop then he fell into a deep sleep dreaming of only one thing more important to him than ramen. He woke up to a bright rays of the sun hitting his face. He yawned then looked what he was leaning on. When he saw what it was he blushed a deep shade of red, which would make Hinata's blushes jealous when he found he was leaning on Hinata. Naruto moved his head to the side to see Hinata's face better. When he did so he found two lavender pair of eyes staring at him. This surprised him making him fall backwards over the chair and hit the floor with a loud thud, which made Hinata giggle. Naruto got up and put his hand on the blanket. When he tried to get up the blanket fell making him fall with it making Hinata have a laughing fit. Naruto finally got up. He was about to leave when he heard a small voice call his name. He turned around to face Hinata. She was just a few inches away from his face when she breathed, "Don't leave me." Her breath tickled his nose making him sneeze, which sent him backwards into the wall with force. Naruto was a little disoriented making him wobble. When he stood up, Hinata ran over to him. She grabbed one of his arms and put it around her neck trying to make him more stable than he was. She walked him over to the chair next to the bed then sat him down. He was looking at his feet the whole time making Hinata worried. She extended her right hand putting it under his chin then lifted it up so they were looking at each other. What she saw surprised her even though she's seen it before, but it was still a shock to her in a good way. Naruto's face was a bright red. Hinata's surprised face turned into a little smile, which made Naruto smile. Naruto's heart was going wild from her light touch. It sent chills down his spine making him shake very lightly, but it surprised her. "Oh sorry. Did I surprise you?" asked a grinning Naruto. "Well no, you didn't," lied Hinata with a little grin on her lips. This made Naruto's grin widen. He had a mischievous glint in his eyes, which made Hinata curious so she got closer making both of them blush. They stayed there for a few minutes until Naruto heard the door squeak, which made him turn his head. Hinata did the same to see a young lady in the doorway. She had long brown hair and wearing a green kimono. "Well, I see you have made a full recovery. Well, Siko wants you to pick out a kimono from upstairs. Your friends are already up there. I will show you the way." Hinata nodded getting up from the bed that she was sitting on to stand by the young woman, but before she left she said, "Siko wants you to go out front. All of your friends are waiting for you." They were out the room before Naruto could say one word. He shook his head then walked out of the room to go find the front of the house. Hinata was following close behind the woman making sure she wouldn't lose sight of her. She didn't want to get lost in this house. They walked up the stairs when they suddenly heard two voices fighting. "I bet you can guess who." Hinata walked into the room to find Ino and Sakura pulling each other's hair and fighting over something stupid. "Billboard brow. Give it back." "Never, Ino pig. Get your own. This is mine." "Grr. You will pay." "Billboard brow. Just try." "Ino pig." It went on like this for it until they saw Hinata just standing there staring at them and shaking her head. "Hinata, you're awake," yelled Ino running up to her hugging her like they hadn't seen each other in ages. "Hinata, Ino pig get off of her," yelled Sakura pushing Ino out of her way so she could hug Hinata. "Hi, so why do we have to wear kimonos?" asked Hinata, who didn't remember the deal. The boys made a deal with the old man, which involved us serving food and drinks in kimonos and the boys' work, said Ino glaring into space. "Oh, well, have you two picked one yet?" "I did, but Billboard brow took it from me." "Well, if you want I have one in my bag that you can wear." "Wow, thanks Hinata," exclaimed Ino running back over to Hinata to hug her. Ino ran downstairs to grab Hinata's bag. While Hinata looked for a kimono that she would like. The closet was full with them, all different colors and sizes to fit anyone that wanted to wear one for a special occasion. She sorted through about 1,000 kimonos before she finally found on that she liked and it was in her size. Ino finally came back with the kimono, so now all they had to do was put them on and fix their hair. Naruto finally found the front of the house and the nurse was right, the guys were all waiting for him. "Sorry guys, I got lost it. They all rolled their eyes at Naruto for being a blonde and an idiot at the same time. Naruto just smiled weakly knowing that he was probably going to get beat up when they got home. Okay, now since everyone is here we will start the chores. First, you must rake and cut the lawn. Then one of you will care for the garden while the other two wash the dishes, and then all of you must wash all of the windows. At the last chore all of their jaws dropped since their are about 40 or so windows in the whole house. You mean we have to do all of the windows in the whole house? Exclaimed Naruto falling over. Do we at least get a lunch break? Asked Shikamaru. Yes and yes. The break will start at 1 now, get going before you have to stay here another day. That got the guys moving. First they had to rake up tea leaves, which were all over the yard in the front and back. Naruto was doing the back while Sasuke and Shikamaru did the front. Naruto walked around the house to the big backyard with the orange leaves all over the green lawn. Naruto used his shadow clone jutsu to replicate a few of himself to help rake the leaves. The only problem was he had to find about 4 rakes and he had no idea where they could be. He saw a shed across the lawn, and he ran toward it forgetting about his clones. So when he tried to get into the shed he couldn't. He was stuck between his clones and the door. He finally got rid of them all so he could look through the stuff in the shed. He looked through all of the mess. He was about to give up when he saw 3 rakes just lying there waiting to be used. Naruto picked up all 3 rakes, then walked out back to the yard to finally start raking, which he should have started 30 minutes ago. He used his shadow clone jutsu again to rake up the leaves that had scattered all over the place. He finally raked up all of the leaves. Now he had to mow the lawn, which made him sigh since he had to find the lawnmower. When he finally found it, the time was 10:30 in the morning, meaning he had 2.5 hours left till lunch. Naruto's stomach growled, making him lose his train of thought, which made him forget what he was doing. When he finally remembered, he seemed to have forgotten where he put the lawnmower. This pissed him off. He finally found it under a tree that seemed to be shaking. Naruto was curious, so he walked up to the lawnmower. He started the engine up, making the tree shake more. But of course Naruto didn't notice. He just kept on trying to make the mower run. The shaking suddenly stopped, making Naruto look, but he shouldn't have, because when he did, something shot out at him. It wasn't just one thing, it was a swarm of them. They were making a buzzing noise. First they swarmed around his head, then they acted. They buzzed, stinging him in the face, arms, and anywhere else unprotected. Naruto ran around the yard yelling, "Bees everywhere! I hate bees!" Sasuke and Shikamaru had just finished the front yard when they suddenly heard someone yelling about bees everywhere and how they hated them. They both started laughing, already recognizing that voice to be the one and only Naruto Uzumaki. They walked casually to the backyard, taking their time by walking slow and cool. Sasuke was the first to enter the yard. What he saw made him grin. Naruto was running around the yard yelling and screaming. He was yelling and screaming, "Help me! Help me! Help them!" He was cut off when he ran into the lawnmower and actually flipped over it, falling flat on his face with bees swarming around him. Shikamaru finally showed up, moving as slow as he possibly could, yawning, which showed how bored or tired he was. Naruto just laid there on the ground surrounded by bees who wouldn't leave him alone. They weren't even stinging him, they just buzzed around. Sasuke was walking closer to Naruto when the bees attacked. They swarmed around Sasuke, just staring at him. Once in a while one of them would test him out by giving him a little jab in the arm or face, seeing if anything would happen. The bees did this a bit, not getting a single flinch or any reaction at all, so they lost interest, flying away back into the tree. "Naruto, you idiot, get up and finish this job before I have to come back and kick your ass," Sasuke threatened. Naruto grinned at this threat. He finally got up with no effort, but when Sasuke saw Naruto's face he couldn't help but laugh. Naruto's face was all red and puffy, making him look like he had just gotten hit in the face. Naruto, you should probably go see the nurse." "So do you, Sasuke," said Shikamaru, shooing them away so he could finish what Naruto started, even though he didn't want to. Naruto and Sasuke trudged off, not happy about what they had to do, while Naruto grumbled about the bees. Shikamaru just smiled, then went to start the lawnmower, which was still where Naruto left it. Naruto was still grumbling about seeing the nurse even though he thought she was a nice lady. As they got to the nurse's office they heard giggles and AWWS coming from the room. They started getting curious, so they snuck up to the door and peeked in. Naruto and Sasuke both blushed, turning a deep red that went all the way down their necks. Naruto just stood there staring at Tei's sight, not moving an inch, afraid that he would scare them. Sasuke was the first to act. He knocked on the door, giving the girls a little scare, then asked, "May we come in?" "Hold on a minute," said a lovely voice, which Naruto recognized as the nurse's. The door finally opened to reveal a young lady in a bright green kimono with long brown hair sitting in a chair reading. "How did the— Oh, never mind, we're here to get something for our bee stings." Sasuke motioned to Naruto, who hadn't moved from his spot. Sasuke pushed him forward, sending him to the floor. This made someone giggle, then someone laughed at the top of their lungs. This made Sasuke curious. Then he heard someone say, "Shush," over Naruto's yelling. Naruto wasn't happy about the way he was being treated, so when Sasuke wasn't paying attention he tripped him. Sasuke almost dodged it, but his foot got caught on Naruto's, so he fell, falling the same way Naruto did. Naruto got a kick out of this. He laughed so hard his sides started to hurt. When he stopped laughing he heard it. It was almost inaudible when he laughed, but when he stopped he heard it loud and clear, like the chirp of a bird. The noise was coming from a closet close by him. He picked himself up slowly, then walked over to it. Before he could open it, someone grabbed his hand. He jerked his head around to find no one other than the nurse. She didn't seem happy about what he was about to do. He finally gave up with a HMMP. This pleased her, but she didn't let go of his arm. She just dragged him over to a chair. He sat down unwillingly, still mad about not getting to see what was in the closet that was making that noise. She checked out his face for anything that could be infected, but found nothing, so instead, she put some kind of cream on the stings. It stung a little, so he winced a few times, but after a while it subsided, making him feel no pain at all. The nurse used something to pull out the stingers that were in his face, but she didn't know about his arms. Miss, I got stung on my arms also," said Naruto, showing her his arms. "Oh my, let's see what we got here." She looked at both of his AR. Ms. Tehi looked worse than his face, so she gave him the same treatment as before. When the nurse was done, she sighed with relief, thankful that it was all over and that she could go back to reading. Sasuke walked over to her when Naruto got up off of the chair and showed her where he got stung. She sighed, then went back to what she was doing before. Instead she was working on Sasuke. Sasuke didn't wince at the pain like Naruto did. He just took it like a noble man. Once she was done she looked at her watch to find that she had worked on these two boys for an hour. It was around 12:45, which meant she still had to get ready and help with lunch. She started rushing around doing different things that Naruto didn't know about. Then she rushed Naruto and Sasuke out of the room. They sighed, then went to the kitchen to see if the food was ready yet, since it was almost 1 o'clock. As they were walking in they heard someone yelling and a lot of shuffling. When they peeked they saw everyone rushing around. Naruto and Sasuke were just standing there when someone pushed through them. When they looked they found the nurse, and she was wearing an apron. Naruto already knew that they weren't ready yet, so he walked off. When he finally noticed Sasuke wasn't with him, so he ran back. He found Sasuke in kitchen helping with the cooking. This surprised Naruto. He had no clue that Sasuke could actually cook. "Sasuke, you can cook. Yay, dope. I taught myself. That's what you have to do when you live alone." "Oh, I forgot, sorry." Naruto looked down at his feet, remembering his childhood. It was just him in a lonely apartment, no one caring about him. Everyone turned away from him. They all hated him for what was inside him, the nine-tailed fox demon, Kyuubi. Sasuke knew that look on Naruto's face. Sasuke sometimes had it when he would remember something horrible like the death of his parents. Sasuke held back his tears. He didn't want anyone to know this emotion that he has tried to erase. Sasuke knew this emotion too well, and he didn't want to experience it again. Never again. Naruto also knew this emotion too well, and he also didn't want to experience it ever again. Naruto closed his eyes, trying to get rid of the images in his head of his horrible childhood. He shook his head a few times, then felt dizzy. He tried to walk toward one of the chairs. He just barely missed one of the chairs. He fell flat on his face. Sasuke saw him and thought he would get up after a while, but he didn't. Sasuke got worried, so he walked over to Naruto and picked him up, then took him to the nurse's office. When he walked into the room, he found 3 girls just standing there. He didn't recognize any of them. "Naruto-kun," one of them yelled, running up to Sasuke, taking Naruto away from him and putting him on the bed. Another one ran toward the bed to check on Naruto. She had long pink hair. Sasuke finally recognized her. "Sakura, is that you?" asked Sasuke, staring at her pale blue and green kimono. "Yes, Sasuke," said Sakura, blushing at Sasuke's stare. Hinata sat next to Naruto, worried about him. Once in a while she would hear him whimper, and one time she saw a single tear. She checked his temperature to find that it had gone down. It was 101 degrees Fahrenheit. It went down 3 degrees. Now his temperature was normal, so she didn't have to worry so much. She just had to make sure he rested easy. "Well, we better go and help out," said Ino, pushing Sakura and Sasuke out of the room so Hinata and Naruto could have more privacy. Hinata put her hand on his cheek, outlining his birthmarks. 3 little lines on both of his cheeks, looking like whiskers. She closed her eyes while brushing her fingers across his cheek. When she opened her eyes, she found 2 deep blue eyes staring at her. Hinata jumped back, blushing a deep red at what she was doing and that he saw her do it to. That made it worse. "Why'd you stop? I liked it. Please continue," said Agree. Naruto, knowing that he had hit one of her weak spots. Naruto jumped off the bed, which wasn't a good idea since he was still a little dizzy, so he fell, but before he hit the ground Hinata caught him. The only problem was that he was heavy, so when she caught him they fell with Hinata on top. Hinata turned a deeper shade of red while Naruto had a light red tint to his cheeks, making him even more adorable. Hinata tried to get up, but was pulled back by Naruto, who had a firm lock around her waist. This made her blush more. She was glad that she didn't faint, because if she did she would have missed what he said. With his arms wrapped around her waist she couldn't get away from him. This made him grin a foxy grin. "You look lovely in this red and purple kimono. It goes perfectly with your hair," whispered Naruto, leaving a warm spot in her ear where he whispered. Naruto sat up, bringing Hinata with him. Once they were in sitting position he made a daring move. He brought his face closer to hers. She could feel Naruto's breath on her face. Hinata inhaled deeply. His breath was intoxicating like chocolate. She couldn't take it anymore. His breath and scent both invited her, and so she accepted it. Hinata closed the gap between them, bringing him closer. At first he was surprised by her sudden action, but then he joined in. They beeped passionately, then they broke apart out of breath by their sudden action, but they both loved it with the passion and desire running through them. They both blushed at what had just happened, but they both smiled at the same time. Then they beeped very lightly, trying to take it slow. Ino, Sakura, and somewhat Sok stayed at the door watching what was happening. At first it was boring, then it finally got interesting. "Oh my gosh, I can't believe Hinata actually did that. Wow, she's brave. I would have never made the first move," exclaimed Ino in amazement. "She didn't make the first move, Naruto did. Didn't you see him lean in?" argued Sakura. "Yes, she did." "No, she didn't." Quote, "Sasuke, who made the first move?" asked Sakura, wanting him to side with her. Naruto did." He wasn't paying attention. He was too busy looking at her dress and her curves. "Wow, I've never noticed before, but Sakura is beautiful. No wonder Naruto used to leak her. Why am I thinking about her?" Sasuke thought. "Why is he staring at me? Is there something on my face, or is it? No way, that can't be it," thought Sakura. Everyone was quiet and this was getting on Ino's nerves, so she said, "I'm going to find Shikamaru. It's too boring here." "Oh, he's in the backyard," said Sasuke without taking his eyes off of Sakura. Sakura's blush turned a darker shade of red, making her look like a cherry. This made Sasuke grin, knowing that she was blushing because of him. Ino shook her head, then went off to the backyard to find Shikamaru. She left Sakura and Sasuke so they could have alone time. Sakura stood still in a daze. She couldn't believe that Sasuke could actually like her that way. It amazed her. "Oh my gosh, this is like a dream come true, so all I have to do is move closer to him. Come on Sakura, move," thought Sakura, mentally beating herself up for not moving. Sasuke watched her expression change from shock to anger then to amazement. It made her look even more attractive to Sasuke. She looks so cute with her expressions and blushes. I just want to walk up to her and touch that beautiful face, thought Sasuke with a grin on his face. He took a step closer, making Sakura back up against the side of the door. He took another step, making Sakura's heart beat faster. Sasuke's heart also beat faster. He couldn't believe what he was doing or about to do. A blush suddenly reached his face as he remembered the scene when Naruto and him looked through a crack in the door. Flashback. Sasuke and Naruto were walking to the nurse's office when they suddenly heard giggles and AWWS coming from the room. They walked slowly up to the door and peeked in. What they saw made both of them blush. The girls were in the room changing into their kimonos. They were whispering something, which made them giggle. One of the girls was blushing. Sasuke recognized her as Sakura, but what he didn't expect to find was that she was just wearing a bra and underwear. Well, actually all of the girls were just wearing a bra and underwear, but what stood out to him was Sakura. He didn't care about the others, just her with her pink bra and underwear matching her hair. Sasuke finally got up the courage to knock and get it over with. He didn't want to see her curves anymore. They were surprised, so they ran away so no one could see them the way they were. Sok was relieved. End flashback. Sakura saw this, his blush and the faraway look that Hikamaru always got when he looked up at the clouds. This was her chance to do something outrageous, but she didn't want to be the one to make the first move. Well, actually Sasuke made the first move since he was moving closer to me, thought Sakura. Cha. Yay, he made the first move. Now it's my turn, yelled inner Sakura. She took a step closer to him, trying to fill in the gap between them. Sasuke snapped out of his trance just in time to see Sakura move forward. Oh no, you don't, whispered Sasuke just loud enough so she could hear him. She stopped dead in her tracks by the way Sasuke was acting. It was not like him. But she loved it either way. What are you going to do about it? Asked Sakura beepy. This made him grin. He walked closer to her. When they were face to face, he pushed her up against the wall. Would you like me to take it slow or at the speed that we're going now? Asked Sasuke, giving Sakura a choice. What do you mean by slow? Asked Sakura with a sweet smile on her face. Well, I mean like waiting till our first date to start doing whatever we were about to do, Sasuke whispered, blowing his breath in her face. Oh hell no, I'm not waiting for our first date to actually experience this. After a while we can take it slow, but not now, exclaimed Sakura, grabbing a hold of Sasuke's waist, pulling him closer. I see, so this is how it's going to be. Well then, fine by me. He put his hands against the wall, then leaned forward, beeping Sakura lightly. Then it got deeper, more passionate, sending desire and lust through their bodies. They broke apart for a breather, then went back in for more. Sakura loved every minute of his passion within his beeps, which got deeper and deeper until Sasuke did something unexpected. He let his tongue move across her lips until they found an opening. After a while his tongue went deeper and deeper into her mouth. Sakura allowed this. It felt even better than before. Now their tongues were entwined with each other's. Once again they broke apart. They both were breathing hard from their passion and desire. Sakura was feeling a little lightheaded, but she didn't care. All she wanted was more of everything: passion, desire, lust, and even love. Her hands were still on his waist, so she pulled, catching him off guard, but he willingly let her. Now they were even closer. She could even hear his heartbeat, which was going crazy. So was hers. Sakura let go of his waist. Instead she grabbed his collar and pulled him down so she could beep him deeply. Sasuke broke apart, then beeped down her neck, inhaling her sweet scent. He beeped back up. All the meanwhile Sakura would either make a groaning sound or say his name, sending chills down his spine. They would have gone even further, but Sasuke sensed someone coming, so they went into the nurse's office. Sasuke seemed to have forgotten that Naruto and Hinata were in there doing who knows what. Ino had just walked out of the back door when she saw Hikamaru just lying there on the ground. She ran over to him, worried. She got on her knees, then leaned her head on his chest to check to see if he was still alive. He was still breathing, so that was a good sign, but what worried her was the speed of his heartbeat. Shikamaru's heartbeat was going wills. It was like it was going to pop out of his chest. Do you mind getting off my chest so I can sit up? Asked Shikamaru. Oh sorry. And I'm not on you literally, it's just my head, said Ino, moving her head and sat straight up. Shikamaru just smiled, then looked up at the sky to watch the clouds go by with nothing to worry about. He kept his gaze on the clouds. Until he felt something on his shoulder. He looked down to find a sleeping Ino. He just smiled, then put his arm around her, so now her head was on his chest. He actually liked it. He was very content with their position. He really didn't mind. Ino lifted up her head after a while, smiling. She then looked up at the sky while Shikamaru looked at her, admiring the way she looked. Wow, she looks beautiful in that blue and purple kimono that she's wearing, and she actually has her hair down, thought Shikamaru. Ino, your hair, looks good down. Shikamaru finally said, looking up at the sky, trying to cover up his blush. Ino noticed this, so she looked up at the sky, then covered her blushing face with her hair. Shikamaru looked down at her face, finding that he couldn't, so he lifted up his hand. He brushed his hand against her hair, then moved it behind her ear so he could see her blushing face better. Shikamaru agreed. Ned then leaned his head down closer to her face. Ino did the same thing. Their lips locked together, sending desire through both of them. At first it was as light as a feather, then it got deeper. Soon, Ino's arms were wrapped around Shikamaru's neck while his arms were around Ino's waist. Whenever their beats would deepen, Shikamaru would pull Ino closer to him, making both of their heartbeats go wild. They broke apart a few times, taking little breathing breaks so Tehi wouldn't run out of breath and faint. Soon enough they went back in. This time the beep was deeper. They beeped for a while. Shikamaru did something he never thought he would. He let his tongue outline Ino's lips, ready to dive in when it got the chance. Ino loved the feel of she tongue on her lips. She let him do that for a bit before she actually let him in. When she did, he moved his tongue all in her mouth, tasting everything like what she had eaten lately. Once an all-over taste test, he locked his tongue with hers. It was like their tongues were doing some kind of dance. They finally broke apart, breathless. Then Shikamaru got up. This confused Ino, but she went along with it. He grabbed her hand, then walked back inside. He had just remembered that it was past 1 o'clock. They walked inside. When they did, they were bombarded with yelling and screaming from no one other than Naruto. Both of them walked into the kitchen to find everyone sitting around a table. The plates and silverware were already set. All they were waiting on was the food. That was why Naruto was yelling. Come on already. I'm starving. I need food now, exclaimed Naruto, holding his stomach. Shut up, you idiot, can't you at least wait a few more minutes? Yelled Sakura while hitting Naruto in the head. Hey, what was that for? Asked Naruto, rubbing his head in pain. You were getting on my nerves, said Sakura calmly, looking at Sasuke. Sasuke had a huge grin on his face from Sakura's statement. He looked over to Sakura to find her looking at him. She was smiling at him in her usual way. It looked like they were reading each other's minds. Naruto looked from Sasuke to Sakura, confused. Then he looked to Shikamaru to see if he knew what was going on. Shikamaru just shrugged. He didn't know anything, but he did have a guess. Of course he wasn't going to say it. Shikamaru didn't want to get involved because, for one thing, he was just too troublesome. The other was because he was just afraid of what Sakura would do to him. He felt a chill go down his spine just thinking about it. He shivered. Whatever she would do to him would be better than what would happen to Naruto. Shikamaru snickered at his little thought. Ino noticed this, so she wanted to know what he was thinking. He leaned down and whispered it to her. Ino Su didn't contain herself. She laughed her butt off. This got everyone's attention except Naruto's. He was too busy thinking about food to actually pay attention to the noise that Ino was making. Ino and Shikamaru both told everyone except Naruto, since, as you know, he didn't know what was going on. Ino, Sakura, Hinata, and Shikamaru were all snickering and giggling while Sasuke just grinned. Naruto finally snapped out of his daze to find all eyes on him. It made him a little uncomfortable. It felt like something bad was going to happen. You're in for it now, Kit, snickered Kyuubi. I was wondering you would show up, but why would I be in for it? I didn't do anything, thought Naruto, a little scared. Gee guys, why are you staring at me like that? Asked a stuttering Naruto. They all looked like they had just made an evil plot. which they might have, but all of these thoughts scare Naruto. What are the chances of me getting out of this alive? He asked Kyuubi. I would Vey to say slim to none. Do you have any other ideas? Asked Kyuubi. Well no, but I think running might be a possibility I guess, thought Naruto. Well, then start running to get a head start, replied Kyuubi. Naruto came back to his body when he did. A wonderful scent hit his nostrils making his mouth water. You finally came back. We thought you were dead. You didn't move a muscle, said Ino with her arm wrapped around Shikamaru's. Where were you, or better yet what were you doing? Asked Sakura. Oh, I was just talking to KY. Naruto cut off. He wasn't about to tell everyone his secret, or at least not now. What did you say, Naruto-kun? Asked a small voice behind him. He turned around to find an indigo-haired girl staring up at him. It made him blush when he would look into her beautiful lavender eyes. Oh, I was just thinking about, you, said a very sly fox whose name is Naruto. Oh, said a blushing Hinata, embarrassed about what Naruto had just said. That was a close one. I almost told them. I'm glad I stopped just in time, thought Naruto. Yay, great job Kit, for being an idiot that is, replied Kyuubi. Hey, said Naruto, but of course that was supposed to be in his head. Hey what, Naruto, who are you talking to? Asked Sakura, getting a little worried. Oh, no one. I just remembered about the food, said Naruto with a low sigh. Great save Kit, now all you have to do is keep your mouth shut, snared Kyuubi. Wow, we're touching today aren't we, thought Naruto sarcastically. Naruto, are you in there? Yelled someone. Naruto shook his head, then looked to where the voice came from. He found Sakura staring at him. She looked a little worried. Yeah Sakura, what is it? Is something wrong? Asked Naruto, confused. Yeah, something is wrong. I've been calling your name for the past 5 minutes with no response from you. Oh, sorry, just in my own little world. I'm fine really, don't worry, reassured Naruto. Sakura nodded, still worried but didn't want to show it, so she continued to eat her beef stew. Naruto watched for a bit, then looked down to find he also had beef stew. He looked around to find everyone had beef stew. Naruto gladly dug into the stew. He seemed to love it since he savored it in his mouth. He let it run down his throat very slowly, letting its taste fill his mouth, then it slid down, leaving him depressed that it was gone. Naruto did that for a few minutes until it actually was gone, leaving him sad and depressed. Hinata saw this, so she slid her bowl toward him so he could have it. Naruto looked toward Hinata and smiled. He then slurped up the soup, enjoying it all. Then he remembered something about the deal that they made with the old man. Hey Ino, Sakura, and Hinata, I thought all of you were supposed to serve us food and drinks, said Naruto. Good going Kit, now we're going to get our asses kicked by Ino and Sakura, sighed Kyuubi. What do you mean? Asked Naruto. Naruto came back to reality to find Ino and Sakura glaring at him. He gulped. He started getting up from his chair, slowly trying not to provoke them like what you would do with a wild animal. Sakura and Ino nodded. This it just made it worse. NWO, they were cracking their knuckles. Ha ha Kit, I can't wait to see this. Wait shit, I'm in your body, so that means, run Kit run, yelled Kyuubi. He was about to run until someone came up behind him and stopped him from going anywhere. He was too afraid to turn around. Naruto finally got up the courage to turn around slowly to see who was behind him. When he turned around all the way, he saw the old man looking him straight in the eyes. Well Naruto, you were correct, that was in the deal, but I thought that I would just let them relax, said the old man, eyeing all of Tay girls. Then why do they have to wear a kimono to relax? Asked a suspicious Naruto. Well, so they look beautiful and elegant while relaxing. Whatever, said Naruto, shaking his head. I bet he just wants to watch THME then pretend that he's having his way with them. Kit, I know what you think. You want to do the same thing with Hinata, said Kyuubi. This made him blush. A light shade of pink, almost unnoticeable. No, I don't, yelled Naruto, not thinking about keeping what he said in his head. Naruto-kun, you don't what? Asked Hinata nervously. The sound of her voice and her face made Naruto blush a deep shade of red, which everyone saw, making them wonder. I don't, gotta go, said a blushing Naruto while running out of the house. Good going, Kit. That's the second time that's happened and I told you so, snickered Kyuubi. Naruto ran to the backyard trying to find peace, which would never happen with the Kyuubi inside of him. Grr, just shut up, yelled Naruto at the top his lungs, scaring away the few birds that were there. He couldn't take it anymore, he had to. It was either now or never and he chose now. He didn't want to live like this anymore. Naruto pulled a kunai out of his pouch on his leg then got ready. Kit, don't do this, it's not worth it, persuaded Kyuubi. What do you care? It's not like it mattered to you about what I do, replied Naruto coldly. Kit, don't please, I'm begging you, think about the people who would miss you like that indigo-haired girl, pleaded Kyuubi. Hinata's face flashed into his making him stop for a second before he shook his head to get her face out of his mind. She will be better off if I just didn't exist, then she could find a nice guy who would love her back, sighed Naruto trying to hold back his tears. Kit, you're not feeling good, you're probably running a fever again, growled Kyuubi. So what if I am? It's not like it matters, I'm going to die anyways, so I'm just better off. Please Kit, don't do this, you will just regret it when it's all over, so just stop now while you still have a chance, pleaded Kyuubi. So what, at least I'll be rid of you and they will forget about me, plus no one will get hurt, replied Naruto. It's not like you can save everyone by doing this, they still will die with or without you, that's just how it is, sighed Kyuubi. I don't care, I'll do it anyways for all of the people who have died because of you, yelled Naruto. Please don't, I'm begging you, at least live for yourself and the ones who love you, said Kyuubi. At first his voice was full blast, but it seemed to be getting lower now, it was just barely a whisper. Suddenly the voice died away altogether. At first it didn't sink in until Naruto tried to talk to him. Naruto came back to reality when he did. He felt searing pain in his chest. He looked down to find that he had actually stabbed himself. His vision got blurry now, he could barely see. But the worst was his knees were caving in. Just before he fell he heard a sweet voice like an angel's call his name in a worried tone. Soon after he blacked out, but not before he felt the pain in his chest, and he also heard a cough from far away. After a while he heard voices all over the place. None of them made sense to him, it was like they were speaking a different language. This all confused him, so he tried to go back to that realm or world that he was at before. Once he tried he couldn't, but he did remember Tay place with great detail. The only thing was he didn't know where he was. Flashback. He had just blacked out when he woke up. He found himself in front of a big golden gate with pictures of wings and feathers. Naruto walked closer to the gate. When he did, it opened just enough for his body to fit in through. There was a gust of wind, bringing the smell of fresh cut flowers. Tinto the open. When he tried walking toward Tay's smell he couldn't. He felt Somethin tugging his body. He felt like he was being torn apart from the inside. When he looked at his body he found that in fact it was being torn apart and something was coming out. All of a sudden the air got tense, like something bad was coming, or was it that it was already there? The thing was being pulled harder and harder, and he felt like it was pulling out his soul or something. He needed to be himself. The pain was unbearable. He couldn't take it anymore. He let out a whimper, then he screamed in agony. Soon the pain was gone and in its place was a loose, breezy feeling in his chest, or you could call it his soul. Naruto was breathing hard from all of the pain and agony, but he still had strength. All of a sudden he felt a gust of wind, then heard a loud cry from behind him, and it sounded sad. Naruto looked behind him to find a huge red fox-like animal with 9 tails. At first he didn't recognize it, then a picture flashed in front of his face. It was of a big 9-tailed fox destroying a town. Kit, you have to help me by waking up so I'll be free of this hell. When Naruto heard this, he didn't understand what Kyuubi meant by he would be free of this hell. Then he saw it. A big blood red appeared out of nowhere. The gate had instead of wings it had horns and little creatures with pointy tails. When it showed up, the air seemed to be suffocating and heat seemed to have picked up. It got hot all of a sudden when the gate appeared out of thin air. Literally the air was so tense, hot, and humid. Kyuubi, how to wake up? I thought I was supposed to go through that gate, asked Naruto pointing at the golden gate. Quote, you have TP, figure that out for yourself, Kit, I can't help you out, just do it fast before I get pulled through that gate. Replied Kyuubi, pointing at the red gate with one of his tails. Naruto see. Get then tried as hard as he could to wake himself up with no success until the third try. He all of a sudden heard voices but couldn't understand them. It was like they were speaking a different language. End flashback. He reluctantly opened his eyes slowly. When he finally did, he could barely see a thing, so he had to blink a few times. When he could see clearly, he looked around the room and what he saw brought questions into his head. Naruto tried to sit up, but when he did, he hit something solid on his chest. When he looked down, he found a fragile-looking indigo-haired girl just lying there. Why didn't I feel the warmth before? Actually, the real question is, why didn't I see her before? Naruto asked himself. He was looking up when he asked himself, but when he looked down he found he stirring. This made him nervous, so he decided to pretend to sleep. As he closed his eyes, Hinata lifted up her head, then yawned. That made Naruto grin, but he hid it. Oh, good, he's still, and thank goodness he stopped whimpering and screaming, said Hinata out loud. I was whimpering and screaming. Oh right, that was when I was being torn apart, thought Naruto with a grim face. All of as. Sudden he felt something soft and warm touch his face. It scared him at first, but then he calmed down after a bit. The touch was light. The fingers barely touched his face, like the person was too afraid to even touch him, but they got up the courage. Naruto wanted to open his eyes but was afraid that he would scare them. So he stayed as still as he could while still breathing and looking like he was asleep. The touch soon left. It left a warm spot on his cheek, making a chill go down his back. He couldn't take it anymore. He had to open his eyes. He wanted to see who it was quick before they got scared. Naruto's eyelids flew open, revealing his deep blue eyes, but of course the one stroking his cheek didn't notice. When his eyelids flew open, he saw indigo hair. And the only person who came to mind was Hinata. He looked the person up and down to find that in fact it was Hinata, and she was still wearing her red and purple kimono. Naruto grinned one of his fox-like grins, but Hinata didn't notice she was too into her thoughts. I wonder what would happen if I thought Naruto, his grin widening. He sat up, then inched his body quietly toward her, trying not to scare her to death. When he was close enough, he extended his right arm. As he did so, Hinata was coming out of her trance, so he had to do it quickly. Naruto's hand finally reached her face, then he lifted his other hand, so now both of his hands were placed on each side of her face. Hinata's lavender eyes opened wide at each sudden touch from Naruto's hands. She was too shocked to even move her breath. Before he dived in, he whispered with a grin, "Hinata-chan, I think it would be wise to breathe before you faint." Hinata gave in, so she let out all of the air that she seemed to be holding. Then she took a deep breath and let it out. That was when he seemed to have dived in, because the next thing she knew, his lips were on hers. This surprised Hinata. When she came out of her trance to find Naruto's lips on hers, she finally relaxed after a while, then deepened the beat by wrapping her arms around his neck. Naruto grinned through the beep at Hinata's bold action. He also tried a bold action by letting his tongue lightly brush against her lips. Hinata started giggling, which made Naruto stop and pull his lips away, giving her a sad but confused face. She gave him an innocent smile, then said, "Sorry Naruto-kun, but it tickled, I couldn't help it." Quote, "Oh really?" said Naruto with a grin. "Well then, Naruto-kun, what are you doing?" stuttered Hinata. Naruto was edging closer and closer to Hinata while she backed away with a bright blush on her face. She scooted her chair out of the way so she could move freely without bumping into something. When he got closer to the edge of the bed, he fell, landing on top of Hinata with his hands behind her head. Soon after, the door creaked open, making both of them turn their heads toward it. To be continued, and thank you for watching.